Adulthood is, I'm afraid, inevitable. And the problem with growing up is we have to take things a little bit more seriously. We have to do adult things, like have children or buy a house or, get a dog or whatever it is that, sort of like our advancing years means that we should be doing. Which means that the feisty little hot hatchback that served us with a lot of fun over the years is going to have to go. Now that's okay because lots of manufacturers produce small SUVs and crossovers now which are very practical and allow us to do the things which that new sense of adulthoodness brings with it. But there is an old saying that says whilst growing old is compulsory, growing up is purely optional. So what if we wanted to blend a little bit of fun with our new sense of practicality and adulthoodness? Well, all is not lost, because now there is this, the new MINI Countryman. And nothing says fun and feistiness quite like a Mini. And now for the first time in its life, the Countryman has gone all electric, which means that we're ticking even more of those boxes that suggest that we've grown up and we're being much more responsible adults than we used to be. But as you can see, it's not just us that's grown up. The Countryman has grown in size quite a bit. And it's not just physical size it's grown in, it's also grown up when it comes to its price. Which got me thinking, is there an alternative out there that sort of like says that we're taking life a little bit more seriously and we're trying to be a bit more practical while still retaining that fun factor that we're looking for? And the answer to that is yes, because now there is this, the Smart #3, which is a larger, sportier sibling to the very good Smart #1. And this one is ticking the fun and feisty box really rather well, because this one carries a very special badge with it, Brabus. Welcome to this week's twin test, welcome to the MINI Countryman SE Sport and the Smart #3 Brabus, and as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before I get started on this week's twin test between the MINI Countryman SE and of course the Smart #3 Brabus, it is that time where we'll ask a little favour from you. Now, we've got quite a few subscribers, but let's be honest, we could do with a few more. So if you're not already a subscriber to the AutoEV channel, would you please consider becoming one? And once you've done that, if you press the bell button down below, that means you'll get notified when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. Once you've watched it, if you enjoy it, and I hope you do, then make sure you give it a little thumbs up. And don't forget, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about cars that we review on the channel, such as the MINI Countryman and of course the Smart #3. Right, the MINI Countryman. So we reviewed the car before. The UK launcher was down there, but then I chose the Countryman E, which is the single motor car. Now let me just briefly bring you up to speed where the MINI Countryman fits and where the MINI brand is now these days, because MINI is exactly that. It's a brand in its own right. And the small car that we used to know as the MINI is now the MINI Cooper. So the hatchback's the Cooper, the Countryman obviously sits at the top of the range, and then in between those two there's going to be the Aceman, which is a slightly smaller 5-door sort of crossover style car, fully electric as well. So the Countryman, why is it the size it is, and why do MINI produce a car like this? Well, it's simple really, because they can't really afford to lose customers. If you've been driving around in a little MINI Cooper, a 3-door hatchback, and you start to grow up and you start to, you get married, you have kids, or you buy a house, you need something a bit more practical, you're going to leave the brand. Even the sort of like the older Countryman, which I own, the R60 model, the first one, it's not a particularly big car. So MINI needed something to make sure that it retained its customers. Now, as I say, this is the twin motor car, the dual motor car, so over 300 horsepower with this, and of course it's the sport trim, and we'll go through trims and stuff later on. But of course it gets things like, the John Cooper Works styling package. John Cooper Works, a real heritage performance brand, so it's really appealing to those people that want to stay with the performance side of MINI, but do need that practicality. However, as I say, it's not just growing in size, it's growing in price. Now, Smart. Now this is an interesting one, because Smart brand, like MINI, has become again a sort of brand in its own right, and it's going to have different sizes of cars throughout it. And whereas MINI is obviously owned by BMW, Smart is part of Mercedes-Benz. It's sort of part of Mercedes because it's jointly owned between Mercedes-Benz and Geely, the Chinese company that also own Volvo, Polestar and Lotus. Now, Smart has gone through a troubled time in its life, in fairness, and Mercedes would have been quite at the right to say enough's enough, we've wasted enough money on it, let's just ditch it and get it gone. But no, they've teamed up with Geely, and Geely take care of all the bits that they're good at, which is batteries, motors and all the tech underneath. Mercedes do the design and the interior and stuff. Now, like Mercedes have AMG, which is now wholly owned obviously by Mercedes-Benz, the performance tuning brand that is part of Mercedes now, Smart has Brabus. And back in the 1980s, Brabus was a rival for AMG. So it's quite interesting that they're all under the same banner now, and it's the Brabus tag that's the performance section of Smart. And boy, does it offer some performance. This has over 400 horsepower. So a lot more than the Mini. But like I've said, fast doesn't necessarily equate to fun. So is the smart choice, or are you better off plumping for the good old Mini Countryman? Well, of course, the only way that we can decide that is by putting them head to head in a twin test. And it's the twin test that car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. It's the AutoEV one. Now, as always, we start with how the cars look, and I'm going to start with the Mini because it is the car that divides a huge amount of opinion. And not just opinion between car people, but opinion between Mini owners. Now, if you've watched our original review of the car, you may have noticed that I own the first generation Mini Countryman. And I was one of those people that had a three-door hatchback and needed something more practical. So I bought the Countryman. Now, you get Mini owners that can't stand the way the thing looks. They just don't get this new look at all. They just, no, what are they doing? It's horrible. Blah. And you get people like myself that have gone, actually, it's all right. And there's other people who really, really like it. My wife loves it. She looked out the window the other day and she went, I really like that. In fact, she saw one in the car park local to us when she had our Mini. She went, oh, I saw the new Countryman the other day. What a great looking little car it is. So it really does divide opinion. So let's start with it. It's what Mini call charismatic simplicity. In other words, they want to retain the character of Mini, but keep it very, very simple looking. So there's the new headlights here with the daytime running lights and indicators that go round, and side lights that go sort of like around a kind of hexagonal fashion round a single lamp in there, a single LED lamp. And then you get your new Mini octagonal grille at the front, except obviously it's not a grille. But what I like about it on this model, on the SE Sport, is it's got that checkered flag motif that runs through it, which is the new John Cooper Works badge. I really like how they've done that. I think that's really distinctive. It looks really good. I'm not so sure about these little indentations here, which I'm sure are designed to sort of like mimic the original bonnet scoop on the original Mini Cooper S. I think that's what they've gone for, but obviously it's not air intakes at all, it's just two little indents. The optional bonnet stripes, and obviously with the colour scheme you've got the contrasting black roof with this one on this chili red paintwork, which is nice. And I do like the rest of the gloss black around here. Now this is quite a big car. Believe it or not, it sits on the same platform as my BMW iX2 long-termer. And you'll see a lot of similarities between the two cars as we go through the review. At the side here you've got these which look like vents but aren't. They're just fake bits of plastic here, but again they've got the checkered flag motif there, and there's some tech in the car here. So you get your radar sensor here for your forward guided cruise control, and you get the little front mounted camera there. All the cooling's done down at the bottom here, and you get the blacked out Mini badge on this one as well, and of course that matches the black that's around the rest of the car. So I quite like the fact they've kept the colour scheme very simple. See what I'm talking about? Charismatic simplicity. But I do get that a lot of people aren't a big lover of this car. But personally, I do quite like it on the whole. Now, as we move around the side, you'll again notice that simplicity that many talk about, because the panels they're very flat, they're very featureless almost. There's no big silly creases and swage lines through it. You know, they haven't gone down the BMW look of making it all fussy. Very simple design. You do have a slight blistering of the wheel arches, just where the wings, as I say, where they mimic the wheel arch line here. Difficult to see in this red, but there is a little feature line that just mimics the curvature of the wheel arch. And of course, you get the contrast again, the contrasting gloss black trim that goes around the wheel arches down the side of the car as well, and it matches the mirrors and the roof. 19-inch wheels are standard. These are optional 20s, and again, I love the design of these with this checkered flag motif in them. And I would probably go for the 20-inch wheels. They are an option on the car, but I just think they fill the arches a bit better. They don't make it look so like it's riding on small casters like you get in the bottom of your sofa, and they just fill the arches a bit more and give it a bit more of a stance, and I like those wheels. They're really good. Just look quite heavy to me at the back. It looks like there's a lot of overhang on the car. Now, one of the things that many people were really complaining about with the new Minis, not just the Countryman but the Cooper as well, was the new style of lights. They're almost like triangular, and they're saying, oh, that's not a proper Mini light. We like the big tall oblong things. That's what they've gone for here. That's more like the original kind of Mini lights, you know, these tall oblong ones here. And there is a reason why they've done that, and it's a very practical one, because it means you can push the tailgate right out to the side for extra practicality. So there is a nod to the heritage there, but it's also for a practical reason. You can also configure how the lights look. So if you like the Union Jack style motif in them, you can have that, or you can have it slightly different. So that's quite cool. Again, there's that personalisation that Mini's become renowned for, that's still available even through electronics. So that's, as I say, quite good. Big roof spoiler. Look how much the roof drops at the back, you know, that aerodynamic roof, because it's way higher at the front, and so it really drops at the back. It's way sort of like, you know, sort of like my neck height, but yet the roof's actually at my head height, so you can just see how it really drops there. Obviously a rear wiper, which is good, high level rear brake light, black type Mini badge, which is not a tailgate release like it is on my Countryman. That's not it. And of course you get Countryman emblazoned across there, and your little yellow S motif because it's the electric one. As you drop to the bottom, obviously you've got a low set number plate and your gloss black trim round here. Now remember, you can also get the Mini as a combustion engine car. The Countryman, you can get it as a combustion engine as well. And if you do that with the Countryman S, then you get quad tailpipes, which I find odd on a Mini. Really odd on a Mini. Rather than just twins, the quad tailpipes. Now if you want to know what the combustion engine Countryman's like, then you can find a review of that over on my other channel, House of Cars. So I will pop a link up to that one. But here we're just talking about electric. But there's no fakery at the bottom here, you know, those bits are filled in, so it's a different bumper that you get there. And then of course down at the bottom you've got your reverse lights there. You get a reverse camera that's tucked up underneath the rear hatchback there, and that's it. But as I say, it's this rear aspect that is the bit that I'm still not sure about in my own head. I like the rest of it, apart from that little bit of trim. But as I say, it's that rear that I'm not quite sure of, yeah? Right, let's jump across to the Smart and see what they've done with it. Now, Smart say the hashtag 3 is more of that sort of coupe style SUV, but I think it's a relevant car to compare to the Countryman. And as you can see, it sits a little bit lower. It's a much sportier, much more, maybe a bit more aggressive looking car in some respects. Very similar to the hashtag 1 at the front, and we love the hashtag 1. That's a great little car. Really like it. And very Mercedes-like with this sort of the light bar, which is a bit of a Mercedes-Benz signature. But lights are slightly different to the hashtag 1 at the front here. You get twin lamps and a slight tick of a daytime running light that comes through there. Big bold Smart badge there, the writing across rather than the logo, which I find quite interesting as well. Though the logo does appear on the car, but it's the lettering across the front of it. And of course you've got this indentation here towards a air scoop, if you like, across that leading edge of the nose cone there. Dropping further down, and we've got our sort of like checkered type of motif here with some openings down at the bottom to allow the battery to get cooled. And again, it's this nice contrasting black and red. Everyone's gone back to this black and red, you know, that we had in the 80s, which I love because I'm a real 80s guy, as you can tell. So I like that. And of course you get the lovely little black on red Brabus badge in the corner there. So it's almost Q car-like in its approach to it. It's less overtly shouting about its sportiness, maybe than the than the Mini does, you know, in that kind of John Cooper Works styling package on that. So it does hide its performance under a bushel a little bit more with this, which I do find quite interesting, because that's what Brabus was more or less about back in the 80s. But yeah, good looking car from the front, but you'll see how different it is to the Mini when we go around the side profile. Do you see what I mean about that coupe-like profile that they're talking about? You know, it's much more of that kind of SUV coupe style, where it seems to sort of like flow down at the back and more coupe-like. And there's other nods to that as well, which I'll show you in a second. Of course, it's still that SUV, if you like, with contrasting wheel arch design here. And it's nice with the kind of clamshell bonnet that just comes to the top of those as well. That's nice, I do like that. There's the Smart logo now. What I do find disappointing is they've not done more of a feature of that. That should be the charging flap, but it's not, it's a standard flap at the back. I find that really disappointing. I did on the #1. Why did they not make that the charging flap? You know, or even if they can't, because of the electronics, put this Smart logo back there. That'd have been cool, just to really, you know, put your charger in there. Anyway, they haven't. 20-inch wheels, nice 5-spoke design, diamond turned with the gloss black finishing them. Red brake calipers, ever so sporty with the red brake calipers. And again, the contrasting colour scheme. Obviously you can have different colours, but you get the black roof over the white body style, panels here. Again, like the Mini, not big silicone sort of like creases and you know, feature lines and stuff. There's a nice strong one that runs up there, and again the black bottom part there, again just to pinch the bodywork in, make it look lower and a bit sportier. And there's your little Brabus badge down there again with that red pinstripe down the bottom. So I do like that. Right, this is the other thing that's sort of like coupe-like. Look at that, frameless doors, front and back. So that's quite cool. Like that. Makes it look really sporty, I think. And as you see, privacy glass, and then it all flows into this really nice sort of like tail here. Yeah, handsome car in profile, and the back's not too bad either. Now when you get to the rear of the Smart, it's probably the part of the design where you can really see, or you can mostly see, that Mercedes-Benz influence. If you put the 3-pointed star there rather than the Smart badge, and I told you it was like a coupe version of the EQA, or even EQC, you'd go, yeah, I can see that, because it does look very Mercedes-like, I think, at the back. It's no bad thing, it's very neat, it's very nice, you know, it's fine, but as I say, it's not quite as distinctive maybe as its own brand as it is from the front and the side profile. That's the only part. You do get this nice roof spoiler with a contrasting red lipstick sort of around it, if you like, and that's quite nice, I like that. Rear wiper, which I'm surprised about given the style of car, but I'm very grateful for, as you know if you're a regular viewer. High set brake lamp set into there. The obligatory light bar, as I say, very Mercedes-Benz like there, and again the lowercase Smart badging across. With your nomenclature here, I still can't get my head around this whole hashtag thing. And that's what you've got to say. It's not number 3, it's #3. It's an odd name for a car. There we go. Contrasting bit down at the bottom there to match the rest of the car. Again, your nice neat Brabus badge there. So again, hiding its performance potential very much under the bushel. What I do like about it is where the boot release is for it. It's very clever, this, I think. It's the centre of the A. So you just press that and the boot lid goes up. I like that, that's neat. I like little design touches like that. And obviously we'll get onto the practicality bit in a second, but it's an electric tailgate release as well, which is pretty cool and quite premium, I think. But yeah, it's probably the profile of the car that's less distinctive as its own brand, if you like. It's very Mercedes-like from the rear and less Smart, dare I suggest. Right. What do we think? Well, there's no doubt about it. The controversial one of the two is going to be the Mini. And as I say, you either like it or you don't. I'm in the like it camp, in fairness, but I understand why people don't. Or don't quite get on with it. The back end I still think is quite heavy. That's the only part that I still need to get my head around. Whereas this, you know, the proportions are a little bit more right. It is a bit more coupe-like in its profile. It's a shame that the back end is so Mercedes-like, but I could put up with that with the rest of it. So I think for me, as much as I love the Mini, it's the Smart that's the one that catches my eye a little bit more because of that profile, you know, and of course with the Brabus additions like the big wheels and the red striping around it. But that's not to say that I don't like the Mini, because I do. But what do I know? I'm not a car designer. I'm not really in the market to buy one of these cars, but you might be. If you are, let me know which one you prefer down in the comment section down below. Now, it's not going to be a massive surprise to you to know the Mini's the more practical of the two, because it is a slightly bigger car. It's 450mm longer, 20mm wider, and it sits 70mm higher than the Smart, which means its boot space is 450 litres. As standard. And as you can see, we've got a suitcase here which we're going to try in a second. You've got a standard 40-20-40 split, and if you fold all those down, that will take the total capacity up to 1,450 litres. There's a boot floor which you can lift up where your cables go. So you've got the cable bag down in there, which is nice, and nicely sort of like designed area for all the cable storage. So can we get the suitcases in? Well, here we go. There's our, that one's, I'm going to have to maybe, oh actually no, that one's not, it's too thingy to go that way. We can get a medium one in there, that can go that way, of course it can, that's fine. One carry-on in there, another carry-on on top of there, and a rucksack. Yeah, that'll go in there, there we go. So yeah, so relatively good boot space. And of course you get this nice rigid parcel shelf, which is good as well. So a good sized boot, as you'd expect for this type of car. But as I say, the Mini is the bigger of the two because it is the physically bigger car as well. But good size of boot there if you need that practicality. Now, like the boot, the Mini's by far the easiest one to get in and out of the back of. Now that seat slides back, that's the driver's seat there, and that's my position. Well, it's not actually my position, because when I switch the car off, the seat slides back electrically. So that's actually further back than my driving position. I'm 5'8". Yesterday, I was 5 up in this car. There was myself, my wife, my daughter in the middle, and 2 grandparents either side, and everyone was comfortable. So it is a good size of car in terms of its practicality. I mean, this is a big car. And, you know, I can get 4 in my Countryman. It's not really an issue, but you no doubt about it, it's grown in size, and this is where you feel the extra sort of like the extra length and space, without doubt. So what have we got? Right, well, we've got door bins which are deep. Good storage in there. We've got pockets on the backs of the front seats. As I say, look at the leg room that I have there, as I say, with the seat slid back. So if that was, say, my wife's driving position, and she's nearer 6 foot than I am, that's probably where she would be. So I could sit behind her, I can get my feet underneath the seat. There's plenty of headroom as well for me, even with this double panoramic roof in the car as well. Flip down armrest. What I didn't, I did mention in terms of the storage, you can fold this centre section down because it's that 40-20-40 split. So if you're carrying a longer load, you can still do that with 2 passengers either side. Really easy to get ISOFIX points. Again, you're carrying children in child seats, they're really easy to clip into, so there's a good amount of there's good access to the ISOFIX points. There is a slight rise in the centre tunnel, but not much. The most intrusive part is actually the back of the centre tunnel here. You know, the centre transmission, sorry, the centre armrest area from the front, that comes into the back, but you've got 2 face vents there, 2 USB-C charging ports there. As I say, if you flip the armrest down, you've also got 2 cup holders there as well. So there's no doubt about it. The Mini counters the Smart quite a lot when it comes to practicality, as you'd expect, because I say it's a slightly bigger car. But there's certainly 5 up in here, no problem at all, and a really welcome addition of space over previous generations of Countryman. Now, like I said, it's not going to be a surprise to learn that the Smart has a smaller boot because it's a physically smaller car and it's got that more coupe-like profile. But you've got a boot space of 370 litres in the Smart, and it has a standard 60-40 split rear bench, and that will take total capacity up to 1,160 litres. So yeah, down on the Mini, without doubt. You've got this more of a roller blind finish here, still nicely constructed, but that kind of roller blind there. You do also have the underfloor storage like you do in the Mini as well, so you can store your cables underneath there too, but there isn't a variable height boot floor, although obviously you could take this out to give you more of a depth of boot if you want. Right, let's try the suitcases, shall we, because they're not going to fit this way because of the parcel shelf, so they've got to go in that way. So that goes in there. There's our medium one that's going to go in there. We can get, let's have a look, we can get a rucksack down the side there, and I think we're only going to get the one carry-on to sit on the top, aren't we? Yeah, it looks like we are. And even then, are we going to get the blind closed? Yeah, I don't think we'll get 4 in there, will we? I think we're going to struggle with that. Yeah, that's too, yeah, that's not going to close over that one. So look, the 3 suitcases plus this rucksack plus a little bit more room for a soft bag there. So whilst it is down on the space of the Mini, as you'd expect, it's not horrific, is it? It's still quite practical in that sense. It's just you need to be maybe a bit more of a Tetris champion to win it back in the Smart than you do at the Mini. However, because the Smart sits on a dedicated EV platform, whereas the Mini obviously doesn't, you do have a small amount of storage up at the front. However, I do mean a small amount of storage up at the front. Yeah, we're not going to find enough space for that extra suitcase in there, are we? Still, at least it's got something. Frameless doors, remember? Right, how do we fare in the back of the Smart? Well, again, the seat slides back, so that's not quite my driving position. But there's no doubt about it, it does feel a smaller car back here. I'm not going to call it tight, because it's not. It's actually okay. You know, they've actually managed to sculpt a little bit out of the seats. I can sit behind again, you know, somebody with the seat slid back a little bit. There's good leg room, there's good headroom, again not as much as the Mini, but because it's not an opening roof, it's just a big panoramic piece of glass, you've got extra height here as well, and it lifts the interior as well. It doesn't feel quite as claustrophobic as it does in the darker Mini cabin, which is interesting considering it feels smaller back here, so that's a good thing. Storage wise, yep, again, deep door pockets, so they're good. We've got pockets on the backs of the front seats, as you'd expect. We've got a USB-C and a USB-A charging port there, tiny little bit of a trough there for a packet of polos, completely flat floor across, so certainly somebody could sit in the centre section here. The belt is integrated into the seat, whereas in the Mini it's in the roof. You've got to double clip it almost when you do it on the Mini, in that sense. Now, what have we got in here? Well, we've got a flip down armrest with two cup holders, but you've also got a load through, he says, if I can work it. Well, it's there, it does work. You've got a load through facility, so a little ski hatch, although it's not going to be as big obviously as the Minis. Same with the ISOFIX points, again really easy to get to, so just flip up covers and they clip in there. So, as much as the boot's smaller, as much as the roofline is more sloping and it's a lower car than the Mini, having the dedicated EV platform doesn't necessarily mean the packaging's bad. They've managed to accommodate quite a bit of space back here. So certainly for a younger family, there wouldn't be a problem. And again, even for myself at 5'8", I could probably drive behind somebody, a 6-foot driver. I could travel behind somebody for a reasonable distance. So don't write the Smart off as a smaller car, because as I say, it's plenty ample enough for a younger family. Now, every time I do an interior car, I tend to go on quite a bit about the interiors, and a lot of people say in the comments, why are your videos so long? Well, there's a reason for that, and it's because we go into so much detail, because we're trying to make it easy. If you're a car buyer out there and you need to know as much as you need to know about them, we like to go into that detail. That being said, obviously we've reviewed the Mini interior a couple of times now, because I did the original Countryman at its launch, and I've also now reviewed the Cooper as well, which has a similar interior. But I will go through some bits again. So, charismatic simplicity. Many have tried to design it like they're thinking about the original Mini, you know, the 1950s Mini, where you just had the round central speedo and then a bank of toggle switches, and that was it. So that's pretty much what they've done here. It's a bit more sophisticated obviously these days, because you've got this 9.4 inch OLED, circular OLED screen, which I absolutely love. As a family, we were all out in the car yesterday, and we were playing with it. My wife was playing with it, my daughter was having to play with it. You got Spike, who's the little bulldog, who's the personal assistant that pops up. He's really cool, I like him. And there's just so much you can do with this. And they've really concentrated on making the user experience really easy, and a lot in it. You know, there's a lot here. So let's quickly go through it. What you have at the top, pretty much, there's not the separate screen style they used to have in the old Countryman, where you literally had the square screen in the round hole. It does look a bit more, wholesome and sort of, homogeneous than it's been before. But you always have at the top the bits that you need. So the power, in other words, your power meter, like a rev counter, your speedo, your gear shift, your range, and your state of charge with the battery. So that's there all the time, okay? You'll see, obviously, you can change how the screen looks depending, obviously, on what you want to see. So yeah, so there you go. If you want more of the bigger speedo, you can do that. We've got, changes like that. Weather, that type of thing. So again, there's a lot there. It works like a smartphone. At the bottom, you've always got, again, a sort of like a constant thing down here where you've got your climate, your radio, your home screen, your nav and your telephone, and then at the side on these bits is your temperature where you adjust. You know, so if you press that, you then adjust it. But it is all done through a screen. You know, they're not physical buttons, it's there, but they're constantly on. Those bits are constantly on, right? So if you go to the center bit here, you can swipe through various different things. So your car, so for instance, you know, your radar, got cruise control, your lane keep assist, that type of thing, that's there. You can just have a big clock in the middle, your speed at the top. You have your trip meter, you know, in terms of your economy. You have the weather, as you saw, you've got Spike, the personal assistant. You can have your, you know, your media in the center, or you can have a map in the center, or your telephone. So you just swipe through what you want, okay? So they're all there. And it's really quick and it's really easy to respond. You press the 6 dots here, and that brings you all up with your apps, okay? So that brings you into your settings menu. So you've got, you can, and then you can also sort of like narrow all of that down, because obviously, like the BMW, there's a lot there. So you can narrow it down. If you just want to know what infotainment apps you have, that's there. Apps for the vehicle, you know, personal assistant, your mini ID, your charging, your assisted view, drive recorder, because you can have a camera in here as well, driver settings, they're all in there. And then your recently used, and then your mini connected bit there, you know, for your personal assistant and your navigation, okay? So the shortcut buttons there. And you see, when you've got the map up, it doesn't look like it's just the center section. It really does blend it all into one, and I really like it. It's a really neat sort of like display. It looks like there is a lot going on, and in some respects there is a lot of information there. But once your eyes adjust, it's really nice and easy to get used to. So there you go there, you can just go into your settings there. Now your navigation system, obviously, it has augmented reality for the first time in a Mini. So again, if you're driving up to, say, I don't know, a T-junction, it's telling you to take left, it will use the front mounted camera to give you the display here and overlay the arrow where it wants you to go. So it's really sophisticated, you know, way sophisticated more than Minis used to be in that sense, obviously. You know, even last generation car. You've also in this car got a head-up display. Which is nice. Now we'll talk about specs and packs and stuff when we come on to the pricing section, but that's part of what they call the level 3 pack, okay? Below the screen we've got some physical controls. So you've got your volume control there for the audio, which is obviously then mirrored obviously on the steering wheel as well, as most cars do. You've got a toggle switch here that says experiences. That's effectively the driving modes, and there's a lot of them. So if I quickly go through them, you'll see the screen change. So go-kart, listen. Your little Mario Kart, woohoo. So that's like sport, if you like. Look how it changes the graphics, all red and black and stuff. And then you've got things such as core, which is the standard setting. So that's like normal, if you like. Okay. And then you've got green, which is eco effectively, and you get the little hummingbird. Now what's interesting here is the hummingbird flaps its wings depending how efficient you're being, and if you absolutely hammer the throttle, it changes from a hummingbird to like a cheetah, a panther. You can see it running along, it's quite fun. And then you've got vivid, which is to do with artwork, more music style of things. And when you're playing, you see you've got all your radio stations up there now, and if you're playing Apple CarPlay, which is standard and it's wireless, as is Android Auto, that's standard. It comes up with the album artwork on there, that type of thing. And then you've got timeless, which is like the old style speedo, the sepia style speedo you used to get in Minis. There you go, that's there. Personal, you can put a picture of your kids up there if you want, and you know, if you want to, you thing your phone up to it, you can have a picture of your dog there or whatever. So that can, and that's important. It's only in then the car. It doesn't go to like some kind of, you know, cloud-based system at BMW or Mini. Oh, hang on. Where people can see your pictures of your kids. It's only in your car. That's all it does. And then the last one, that's balanced. The last one you've got in the Countryman, which is trail. Now again, it's not a big off-roader this, but it's designed to be a little bit more country-like, you know, outdoorsy style of screen. That's what they tell me. So that's all those, okay? Next to that is your power thing. It twists like a key. Let me put my foot on the brake. So you twist it, and that starts the car up, or turns it off, obviously, depending. You turn it off the other way. So that's quite cool. My wife loved that. She says, that's really smart. It's just like the old key you used to get in the old Minis. And then there's your gear selection there. Down for neutral and drive, up for reverse, and press the button for park. This button here takes you to a shortcut for your driver settings, so driver assistance, drivetrain and chassis and charging. That's your parking camera, that's your hazards, and there's your maximum defrost and rear screen there. Okay? Wireless charging pad there, which is nice, standard in there, and then a little cubby box in front there. We've got 2 cup holders at the front, which are enough for a water bottle and coffee flask. Then there's this little box in here, which I really like, which will take, you know, things like your wallet, car keys, that type of thing. You can have that out of prying eyes. And then there's still this rubberized storage tray behind that. The armrest doesn't lift up, but it does slide forward and backwards. So depending obviously on your comfort, you know, whether you want that forward or back. So all good so far. That's good, that's really good, and it doesn't get too complicated once you've got used to it. I do like it, I have to admit. I really do like the, you know, and the experiences, they're a bit quirky and a bit gimmicky in some respects, but you know, things like the go-kart one and the core and the green one, the efficiency one, that's your normal eco and sport. Okay, so that's what they are. Right, okay, let's move on. Driving position, superb. My wife's been driving this car, and obviously we've got a BMW iX2, which I was explaining to her. Obviously it's the same platform. She says this is a much easier car to get in and out of than the iX2. She said you said it's much easier to get in, and just everything's there. She loves the interior of this car. She really got on well with it. She said it feels good. The controls feel nice and chunky in your hand. She liked that. She loves the screen. Love the material dash. I mean, we really do. And this is all sustainable material. So again, Mini's gone leather free, like it's gone chrome free. So this is all man-made leather that's on the seats and things like that. And it still feels special. You know, this knitted material up here, it does. You know, I know people don't like it, but sit in it and, you know, touch it and think, you'll really, honestly, it's brilliant. I love what Mini have done with this interior. It is superb. It doesn't feel cheap. It really doesn't. There's areas, I will concede, that where the plastics maybe don't feel quite as good as they have done in the past, but it doesn't feel flimsy. Everything feels rock solid. Everything's built. It feels like a premium product. It really does. My only gripe, as you know if you're a regular viewer, is the steering wheel's too thick. It's too thick on a Mini. Why does it need to be that thickness? Even on a sporty one, it's just too thick. It needs to be thinner rimmed than that. But I like the design of it, you know, with this John Cooper Works material strap as the third spoke. We'll love that. Buttons, physical buttons on the steering wheel, nice and easy to use. Nice, chunky stalks to use as well, you know, and they're within easy reach. The seats are really nice. You've got this one-piece backrest with integrated head restraint. Really like that. Good visibility out of the car. I sit low, but even so, I can still see all 4 corners of the car from the driving seat. My wife sits slightly higher than I do, and that's what she said. She likes that proper SUV-style driving position. That's excellent. And then down your door panel, you've got mirrors and window switches, as you would expect. So, really good tech. Yeah, really easy to get on with. The graphics and the way that everything looks, once you start getting used to it, just work really, really well. The little bulldog Spike is brilliant. You know, and my daughter was she was laughing and giggling about it yesterday. How he does this funky dance when you set your profile up. I don't know if I can get it to do it. What do I see here? Change profile. Driver at continue as guest. Open. But I can't get it to do it now. Here we go. And he comes up and does a wee dance to the music, you know, to pump up the jam, and it's a real Mini thing. You know, it just looks brilliant, and it's a load of fun, and that's what I love about Mini. You know, they're taking something and they're making character. They're making sort of like, it's not going to do it for me. Never mind. They're giving it character, and they're just, you know, but there's still a usability in this here. You know, good storage. Everything feels quality. My only bit that I think is slightly disappointing are these vents stalks here. Now, I was driving the Honda CR-V last week, and they've got a similar thing, and they feel really solid. And they used to be the same on the Saabs, where they had the stalks where you control the air vent. These just feel a little bit wobbly and cheap. It's the only thing on the interior that I think does. But the rest of it, you know, the screen, all this section here, It's as solid as a rock. The materials are nice. It just works. I think it's brilliant inside here. Now in contrast, the Smart is completely different, but not in a bad way, because again, in here, there's a lot to really like about it. And again, I'm going to talk about the first thing, is the quality. You look and you think, oh, it's an awful lot of plastic around, but actually it feels quite good. Yeah, it's a bit creaky in certain places, but not horrific. You know, again, no different to maybe some, you know, some of Mercedes stuff, if I'm being blunt about it. You know, these round air vents, they wouldn't, you know, the way they click when you shut them off, you know, they wouldn't feel out of place in a C-Class or an E-Class. In fact, in some respects, they're actually better than the twirly turbine blade ones that Mercedes do on some of their EQ models. I prefer these, because they feel really cheap on those. Look at the design, completely different to the Mini, so you feel really enclosed on either side. So it's a real sort of like sporty feel with this rising sort of like T shape that comes up and then spreads across the dash. And you know, so things are, you know, sort of like focused around you. You feel like you're sitting, for want of a better word, in a cockpit, and you're really separated out from your passenger. So again, very different in terms of the style of the car. You've got this big 12.8 inch screen on the dashboard, and this is the only bit that I'm just not struck on, if I'm being blunt about it. I don't think it works as the graphics work quite as well. It's not quite as clear. Let me just turn that fan speed down. Sorry, let me just turn that down. There we go. It's not quite as clear. The graphics aren't quite as good. The colours aren't as good. Do you know what it's like? If I can relate this to sort of like other things that you use, you know, if you go and buy, say, a Samsung, if you're an Android Auto user and you go and buy a Samsung Galaxy, you know, that's like the Mini. Vibrant colours, really clear, really crisp graphics, really good colours that you can see the screen on. That's like a slightly cheaper Android Auto phone. Yeah, the colours aren't quite as crisp, the fonts aren't quite as nice, the graphics aren't quite as sharp. It's that style of thing that, you know, it still has everything there. It still has everything you want to see, but you know, it just doesn't feel quite as sharp in comparison with the Minis. It just feels a little bit, I don't know, slightly lower quality tech. Still got the tech, but it just feels slightly lower quality. And everything just doesn't work quite as nicely as you get in the Mini in that sense. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but that's what I'm trying to say. Right, while we're on here, we've got all our apps here. So you've got two screens that you swipe between. You've got this home screen, which I find quite confusing. You've got the cheetah in this one. You remember you had the Fox and the #1, and obviously you've got Spike in the Mini. Well, the #3 has a cheetah, which is quite apt considering the performance of this car. And then you've got the blood, it tells you what mode you're in, so comfort mode. And then there's our driving mode button below there. See? Oh, which is touch sensitive, you see? So it will tell you there. And you see it just does that, you see? Eco, comfort, and it turns the world round and does all sorts of funky stuff. The information's there. You know, you've got your range at the top here, you've got your apps you can go straight to with this one here. You've got the Brabus button there, parking camera, you know, 360-degree parking camera. You know, tech is there, that's what I'm saying, it's got all of that stuff. You know, as I say, it's just the graphics and stuff just don't look quite as good in my opinion. But, you know, I mean, everyone, each to their own. And then you've got your radio media there, and then obviously your weather and stuff in the top stuff. So again, there's a lot of information going on here. Along the bottom, again, you'll notice a distinct lack of buttons. So it's a little bit like its sister car, cousin car, the Volvo EX30. The lot's controlled through the screen. So there is your temperature control there on either side. You see your climate menu, you can bring it straight up. Here's your cheetah again. Temperature, heated seats, heated steering wheel either side, and a settings button there. Right, this is my other wee bugbear. Let me just go back to this screen here. As you know, a lot of cars have safety systems on them as standard now. Lane keep assist, speed limit warning, all that kind of thing. The speed limit warning in the Mini, you press and hold the button on the steering wheel and it switches it off. Simple as you like. In the Smart, so that's your home screen. What you have to do is flick to this screen, into settings, wait till it all comes up, driving assistance, so you go all the way down here, and look at all this. You've got to go through all of this to find it. So there, it's not that one, it's in, is it in the assistant side? There you go, blind spot assist, automatic speed adjustment, advanced speed limit warning. That's 3-4 screens in before you get to it, and it's busy, isn't it? That screen it's got a lot of writing on it, and it doesn't tell you. Now, obviously Smart's part of Geely Group, which is, which has Volvo and Polestar in it. Polestar's really simple layout would work wonders here. Where if it's on, they put the tiles up, and if it's orange, it's on. If it's not, it's off. Why is there all this writing and stuff to explain stuff to you? And why is it all buried? Look, all these sub-menus down here that you've got to find the one it's in. And you've got to do that every time you set off. So there isn't a profile button. You could set it up like you get on, say, the Renault now. When you get in and you press the button. Right, that's all my settings set, let's go. You've got to go into all these screens to go all the way through. Now, I know Smart aren't alone in this. Other people do have this type of thing where they're buried in screens. It's got to stop, manufacturers. Stop doing it. It's irritating. And it's it's actually causing more problems than it's solving. Because because you forget and you drive off, you go, oh, I've got to turn the thing off. So you've got to go into, oh, I'm driving, I've got to find the menu, and stop it. It's not needed. But that's a mess, I think. I really do. It's the one thing about it that really bugs me about this car is that you've got to go into, oh, what have I done there? I've turned the radio on. Better turn that down before we get a copyright strike. So yeah, just don't do it. Right, okay, I'll go away from that. What I do like, however, is the fact that you do get this screen in front of the driver. So 12.8 inch, there's a 9-inch wee display down here, which the Volvo doesn't have, the EX30, and that's what's down here. So you get speed readout there, your mileage to go, your media playing there, and still graphics there, and you still get a head-up display as well. So there's more than enough as you're driving, whereas the Volvo, you're constantly trying to do this kind of stuff over here. At least you've got everything in front of you in the Smart, so that is good. So I do like that. Driving position, excellent, really nice seats. I'm not so sure about these silver buttons on the seats, where the stitching is, but I suppose that's just a style thing. But again, you get the leatherette and then this Alcantara centre, a bit like the Mercedes AMG line cars do have. That's nice. This silverized plastic, yes, as I say, it's a bit creaky at the back here, but on the whole it's not bad. Nice wireless charging pad in there, although my phone was constantly beeping saying it's charging, then it wasn't, then it was charging, then it wasn't, so I don't know what's going on in there. 2 cup holders back here, which obviously they can then cover. You can also you've got a little slot down there for your wallet, plus then underneath here you've got a big storage trough, for dropping iPads or handbags into, and you've also got a cooled centre box here, which is really deep. You get extra bottles of water in there, and that's all cooled, or your Snickers bar, and keep them nice and cold. Good sized door bins, which have got water bottle shapes in them, and again, they're not lined, but they feel quite solid. Sunglasses holder up there. The ambient lighting in here is lovely. There's a lot of it, so you get it all round here on the top of the dash, even through the Beats tweeter speakers up here. You get the ambient lighting through them. That's lovely at night. I was driving it at night the other night. That's really cool, and you can change all of that. The buttons you get across the bottom of the screen there. So there's your car settings shortcut button. See what I mean? It's all busy, isn't it? And then you've got energy recuperation, medium or high. That's your brake thing. Lane keep assist. That's all the bits there. The S pedal. But you see what I mean? You've got to go into it. There's your driving modes. Heated rear screen, maximum defrost, auto climate, and then switch the screen off with that one there. Okay. Steering wheel, way better than the Minis. Nice size of steering wheel, nice thickness of rim, leatherette on the inside, Alcantara on the outside, armadillo. That feels nice to hold, and physical buttons on the steering wheel as well. So for the park assist, volume control, trip meter, all that kind of things there. You've got a column stock on this side which does you know, typical Mercedes style wipers, indicators and main beam, and that column stock there is your transmission lever there, and then you've got your light switch down by your right knee, unusual stuff on the door. Right, I've gone on long enough. It's brilliant in here, I really like it. I do love the style of it. It's very different to the Minis. It's very sporty feeling to the car. That's a pain in the neck. I don't think the graphics are as good. It's not as easy to use as the Minis become, and there's just too much. You've got to go into too many things to turn certain things on and off, and it's just a faff, I think, personally. But as I say, Smart aren't alone in that. Lots of manufacturers do it, but that's the worst aspect of the cabin. But on the whole, I really like it. I really like it in here. It's a good cabin, very different in feel to the Minis, much sportier in feel. Good amount of storage. The build quality is not quite on a par, but it's not far off. You know, it's a lot better than some manufacturers out there. And I say there's some really cool little features on the car, such as the ambient lighting, you know, the materials used and stuff like that. My one big issue with Smart, and I'm really surprised at it, as a brand that is trying to reinvent itself, as a brand that's trying to appeal to a very youthful, very young audience, there is no talk of sustainability and recycled materials in this car. None at all. You look through it and it's nothing there. I'm sure it has it, but Mini, BMW, they make a massive thing about it. You know, we're using this type of material now. They talk endlessly about how they're trying to make building cars better for the environment. What are we doing this? We're using this type of material. We've got this, we've got that. All the rest of it, you know, the textured knit material in the dash of the Mini is all from recycled polyester. We've gone leather free. It's man-made leather. We don't use chrome in the cars anymore. There's none of that with Smart, and I'm really surprised at it, and I'm really shocked at it. They need to talk more about it, because that is what's going to turn younger buyers on, I think, rather than just making it all red and black and sporty inside. Talk about what you're building the cars with and the sustainability message. It's got to be front and centre, I think, for new younger buyers, but there's no talk of that with the Smart, and I'm really disappointed with them for that. But on saying that, the interior is a good interior, feels sportier than the Minis in terms of its driving position and its seating, but that's a faff. There we go. Now, the battery in the Mini has a usable capacity of 64.7 kilowatt hours, which should give, according to WLTP figures, a range of up to 251 miles. Now, again, if you know, this car uses the same platform as my BMW iX2, same battery as that car, and I can get roughly 230, maybe just over 230 miles out of that car if I'm careful. So probably it's not far off what you can get with it if you're being a little bit careful with the car. Charging speeds, 130 kilowatt charging speeds on DC, so you can go from your usual benchmark 10 to 80% in 29 minutes on the car, because of some clever management, a battery management system and software in it. It's got a nice flat charging curve. 11 kilowatt capability comes with the car, but if you go for this optional level 3 pack on this car, which we'll talk about in the pricing section, then it also comes with a 22 kilowatt onboard capability as well. But if you're using a 7 kilowatt charge, a wall box, like your home wall box like I have, you're going to go from flat to full in 10.5 hours. Now, on the Smart, it's a 62 kilowatt hour usable capacity of battery, which should give, according to WLTP figures, a range of up to 258 miles. So pretty much sparring partners, these two, aren't they? If you look at something like the EV database, it suggests a real world range of a combined in mild weather of around about 230 miles. So again, like the Mini, quite achievable close to its actual official figures if you're careful with it. Now, charging speeds are slightly higher at 150 kilowatts on the Brabus model, but even so, a 10 to 80% charge takes 30 minutes, a minute longer than you get in the Mini. So its charging curve isn't quite as efficient as you get in the Mini. However, 22 kilowatt charging capability standard on it. But if it's a 7 kilowatt wall box that you're using, then your benchmark of going from empty to absolute full is going to take 10 hours. I'm going to start with the Mini, and as I say, we've reviewed the Countryman before, but as I say, that was the Countryman E, this is the SE, so you get dual motors, more power. The standard car is 204 PS from memory, this is 313 horsepower, so there's quite a bit of a difference that you get with it, and as I've said, it is very, very similar in setup to my BMW iX2 long-term test car, because obviously this uses the same platform as the iX1, iX2 models, hence the reason it's grown so much. But it does have a different feel to it than the BMW. There's no doubt about it. You know, my wife has loved this car. She's been jumping in and out of this car all week and driving it. You know, even against our standard Countryman. She's saying, gosh, you know, it feels like a Mini, but it feels more grown up. She says it's easier to get in and out of than the BMW. She prefers the, you know, the way of getting in and out of the car, and you know, sort of like the layout of it, and she really likes the dashboard and all the rest of it, because it's still a Mini. So I get what people are saying when people say, oh, you know, it's not a proper Mini because it's so big and it's, you know, it's not the same and da-da-da. It really is a Mini. It's weird because you've got, you know, when you look at all of this, see the quirky big circular screen here, the toggle switches, obviously the Mini badge, but you know, you've got the nice sporty seats, you know, that grip you well. But there's no getting away from the fact it's a much bigger car, and it feels much bigger, and you sit higher in it than you do in the Smart. So the Smart is more of a low-slung, sporty feel to it. This is more of a traditional crossover SUV style of car, you know, from its driving position. Right, what shall we talk about? Well, let's talk about, first of all, the performance of the car, because it's quite quick, you know, not as quick as the Smart, but it's quick enough. You know, 0 to 60, 5.6 seconds. You know, so I say it's fairly rapid in terms of, you know, again, this size of car. And if you think about sort of like, you know, the Minis, the combustion engine Minis, you know, the John Cooper works cars, you know, it's on a par with that. So, you know, it's good in terms of performance. It's very good. What's also very good is the weight of everything. So the weight of the accelerator, you know, the weight of the steering, it's got a heft to it. It's got a sort of like, it's not overly light. You know, you don't step on the throttle and all of a sudden the world explodes. It's not like that. You know, that you do feel like you're making the car accelerate. You know, and again, the same with the brakes. You're making the car stop. You know, it needs a nice, good, firm push on it. And when you do push on it, you know, there isn't really a noticeable transition between the regen of the motor into the actual physical brakes. So as you go into a much harder stop, if you like, you know, where the physical brakes are grabbing, it feels right. Now, if I put my foot down in normal mode, it's got an instant torque there, as you expect with an electric car. But obviously you can go through the different modes, or experiences as many call them now. The three that really sort of like change the character of the car are Go-Kart, Green and Core. No, Balanced I think it is, which is what it's in at the moment. What's it in? Let's have a quick look at experiences. Core, sorry, I was right. When you go to Go-Kart and you get your little Mario Kart thing, that really changes the throttle response. It really, you know, you've got a much sharper throttle now and more instantaneous, but there's still the weight behind it. There's still the weight behind the accelerator pedal. You know, again, it's still you that's pushing it. It's still you that's making it happen. My bugbear is the steering wheel. It's just too big. You know, it feels too thick. But oddly enough, again, just relating back to what my wife has said, she loves it. She says she really likes the big thick wheel with the thumb grips at the top. She says it makes her feel like she's really in control of the car. And she likes it on the BMW as well. So maybe it is a personal thing. As I say, I don't particularly like it. I think it's too thick. There's not enough wheel. I think the Smart has a much nicer steering wheel in terms of the way it's easy to sort of like hold. The suspension, it's firm but not crashy. It's not as bumpy and lumpy as the BMW iX2. So there's a little bit more compliancy gone into it than there is in my BMW. Now, I haven't checked the wheelbases to see if they're slightly longer, you know, on the Mini, slightly longer than the Mini, because that would make a bit of a difference. I'd need to check that. But it doesn't feel as crashy in some respects as the BMW. As I say, you can still feel what's going on underneath the car. If I go down here, this road here, it's some fairly pockmarked surface bits here. Let's have a, yeah, here we go, here's the, Yeah, you see, again, you know they're there, but it doesn't transmit through the cabin like it would do like it does in some cars, where it gets quite crashy. It's well judged, the damping. It's really nice. And as I say, there was 5 of us in the car the other day, driving around locally, and no one was complaining about a firm ride or, oh gosh, you can feel all the potholes. It's something that my father-in-law would say, gosh, this is a bit of a crashy looking car, you can feel everything on. Absolutely fine. Good driving position, really easy to see everything out. The head-up display makes a big difference as well. But you sit high in the car and you can see all of the extremities of it. So you can see it's very easy to position it, on a road, on a twisty road. If you are getting a bit of a hustle on and you do want to sort of stick it into go-kart mode and get a bit of a move on, then it is quite an easy car to place. As I said when I road tested the original Countryman, it's not the best as being the family car in that sense. I would suggest that if you're just going, all you need is a standard, 5-door family car as a crossover, then something like a Renault Scenic is probably the better option. But if you want something that still has a little bit of fun, a little bit of character in it, and it still feels like a Mini, then this is where this really wins, I think. It just feels, it's weird because they say, you see the physical size of the car, you look at the styling and go, that's not a Mini. But when you drive it, it is. It's just bigger. And that's what I like about it. They have managed to keep character of Mini in this Countryman. They have managed to do it while making it feel a bit more grown up, a little bit more, usable, and but yeah, it's still a Mini. It's brilliant. I absolutely love it. Now there's a boost paddle here, which is completely superfluous, and I forget to talk about, which gives you an extra 10 seconds of ridiculousness. Oh, I need to slow down. And if I get into these bends here, let's have a little look and see. Yeah, you see the body control through. There's a bit there where it undulates, and it's on the corner, so it can really throw the body off. It can really change. And yet, this stays really well controlled through it. Yeah, this is a good car. I prefer it to the standard Countryman, and I think the standard Countryman E is a great car, but this is better. They've done a great job with this car, a brilliant job with this car. I love it. Now, this is where the Smart really plays its trump card against the Mini. There's no getting away from the fact that this is an extremely powerful car. Obviously, it's dual motor, all-wheel drive, and it delivers 428 horsepower. Now that's well over 100 horsepower more than the Mini does in a slightly smaller car. It slices nearly 2 seconds off the Mini Sprint to 60 miles an hour. It does it in 3.7 seconds. This is fast. Even the hashtag 3 Pro Plus, although it sounds like something a student would take to stay awake during exam time, that's nearly as quick as the Mini. But it's not the sort of sportiness that you get, which is why the Brabus is a much more even keel, an even competition when it comes to sort of, thinking of a competitor with the Smart to the Mini. But as I said right at the start, it's all very well being fast, but is it fun? And the simple answer to that is yes. Yes, it is. This is a really good car. I don't know what I expected with Smart. I think when they first announced they were coming back with this style of car, the hashtag 1, then the hashtag 3, and there was a part of me thought, I wonder if they're going to be a bit cheap and plasticky inside, and the way that they drive is going to feel substandard. It's not. It's a really well-engineered car. If your memory of Smart is those old 4.2 coupes, little 2-seater city cars, and the Roadsters and the coupes, good as they were, there was something, they were slightly sort of like more budget orientated. This does not feel a budget car. This feels a really well-engineered car, and that means that the Brabus name that's attached to it is well placed, I think, in this vehicle. You sit as I said before, really low in the car. You sit in a real almost sports car like environment with this rising console here, you know, the dashboard is spread out in front of you so you can see everything, a really nice 3-spoke steering wheel in front of you. So that's the safety equipment. Sorry, that's a camera that's rolling around in that little bit there. Let me move that so that we can talk without being disturbed, shall we? So the driving environment feels very sports car-like, you know, very sporty-like, and that's one advantage it has over the Mini in terms of the performance side of the Smart. It always feels like it feels right, you know, fits really, really well. This lovely 3-spoke steering wheel, slightly flattened at the bottom with the Alcantara sort of like outer rim and then the sort of leatherette on the inner rim. Good driving position, seats hold you well, nice lateral support down you, also grip the thighs well. Not too grippy, you know, you can jump in and out of the car without feeling they're too constrained, but you think you could do probably a long drive in them, and you know they would hold you well if you were throwing the car down some twisty little back road. Now let me talk about the ride quality before we start talking about the performance side of it, because it is sporty, so the ride quality is firm. It's not uncomfortable. I don't want you thinking that it's uncomfortable and bangy and crashy. You can hear what's happening underneath, but this is partly what I was saying with regards to sort of like the engineering of the car. If a car's not well engineered, it just bangs and crashes and things rattle and all the rest of it. This doesn't do that. You can feel the bumps and things going through the car, but it's not, how do I put this? It doesn't feel, as I say, things aren't rattling away, things aren't feeling cheap. It's just it has a firm suspension. That's all it is. When the road surface becomes a bit smoother, that translates into a really well-controlled body movement. So you start to string bends together, and there's no lean in the car. It stays quite nice and flat as you go through the bends. So that's the trade-off. There is a little bit of a firm ride at low speed, and where you do notice imperfections in the surface. You can't get away from them. But as I say, it doesn't feel sort of like cheap. That was a good idea, Brian. That doesn't move in. That doesn't change anything at all. What was I saying? It doesn't feel crashy. It doesn't feel uncomfortable when you get, you know, sort of like go through some of these surface imperfections. It feels absolutely fine. It's just you notice them. And the trade-off is handling that is really very good. And as I say, when you start to string some bends together. Now the steering, there's a tiny little bit of deadness at the straight ahead. A very tiny little bit of deadness at the straight ahead. But as soon as you move past that, it's got a nice meaty steering feel to it. You know, it feels really positive. There's a weight behind it that makes you know that actually everything I'm doing is having a response. Now you're maybe hearing that little blub, blub, blub going on. That's all the safety systems I was talking about earlier. The speed limit warning. But I can't be bothered to go into that to turn everything off because it's such a faff. But that's what that is. And there's a lot of those, you know, lane keep assist, cross traffic alert, huge amount of safety kit on the car. Let's talk about the different driving modes now, because we can access them through this driving mode switch here. So this is me in Sport. I can go into Comfort. So there's 4. There's Eco, Comfort and Sport, exactly as you would, you know, expect on any of these style of cars. And Comfort, yeah, you can just feel the sort of like steering kind of, it's not quite as heavy, it just slackens off a little bit, you know, it's just a little bit more, I don't want to say lethargic, but a little bit more lazy, dare I suggest. As you turn into a bend, you know, there's a little bit more laziness in the actual steering itself. If we change now into the Sport, that's when things alter and we get the sharper throttle response and the slightly heavier steering now. We go from there, however, into Brabus mode and things really go up a notch or two. Let's just come through here. Now we've got a real kind of meaty steering feel on it. And then the throttle response becomes much more deliberate. You can just creepers, Batman. That just absolutely flies now. You know, you squeeze the throttle and it just takes off. But oddly enough, although that is monstrously quick and geez, oh, See there, that was a really nasty little dip in the road there, that the body control was really well judged. It just handled that really well. I'm really impressed with this car. And it's not just because it's fast, which obviously it is, but it's just, as I say, it feels really well engineered. That's the bit that impresses. And that's the difference between making a fast electric car and making a fun electric car. You know, making one that feels like somebody's put some thought into what happens when we do go fast. You know, the body control's good, the steering's good, you know, the throttle response. There's still a weight behind the throttle. It's not like an electric switch. You know, you put your foot down, it's not just bang and it all happens and then it all feels out of control when it gets to a point. And that's what I've always felt, you know, people like Tesla get it a little bit wrong. You know, they are getting better, but you know, they're good at making a car very fast in a straight line. But is it fun and through the bends? And not really. There's just more to it than just making a car go exceptionally fast. And that is where I think Smart have got it absolutely right with this car. Now, I've not driven the #1 Brabus, I've driven the standard #1. But I'm led to believe, again, it is a very good car. But I think this slightly bigger car, the longer car, I think this could be a real winner in the range, I really do. Now, this bit of road here, this is quite a lumpy, bumpy bit of road that I take the cars down. So let's just see how it feels when I up the speed coming down here. Does it get out of control and throw you around? No, it doesn't. It just feels, you can feel the bumps and the moves in the road, but no, it does not feel like it's out of control. The brakes. Okay, so the brake pedal here coming to this junction, there's a bit of deadness just at the top of the pedal, and then it's not as spongy. God, that's addictive. I'm sorry, this shouldn't be allowed. You shouldn't be able to have this much fun in a car. I'm sorry, I really am. Brakes. Yeah, there's a little bit of deadness at the top of the pedal, but as you push through that, the brakes start to really bite. Now, bit like a lot of the Geely cars that you get, you do have, where is it now? See, that's my problem, you've got to go into this. High energy recuperation. Okay, so there's no adjustment here, but when you come off it, there's nothing behind me, or it's far behind. It will bring the car up to an absolute dead stop. I need to move now because there's a car coming. But it will bring the car to a dead stop. So there is a one pedal drive with the car. But that's it. It's either on or it's off. And I quite like that. I don't like too much. You know, I'm not a big lover of sort of like, you know, all this brake regen and stuff like that. So it's quite nice that you do have you know, that you've got just that you can have it on or you can have it off, and I quite like it. It's good. Yeah, there's enough retardation there, as I say, when you come off the pedal you can really feel it starting to haul the car up. Yeah, this is a good car. This is a really good little car. Do I prefer it to the Volvo EX30, which I love? I don't know. It does feel, more of this just feels a bit better than it does in the Volvo. I love the Volvo, but this feels a bit sporty. It feels well engineered, as I say, and that Brabus badge does make a difference. I think I really do. I think this is a real hidden gem, this car. This is not the smart cars of old. This is a very different smart car, and I like it. Now, if you thought that the Smart #3 had delivered its knockout blow in the performance and handling testing, it's not finished with the Mini yet, because it's here in the pricing section that might finally see the Countryman on the canvas. You see, as tested, this car sat here, Countryman SE Sport, with the optional 20-inch wheels, is £56,200. Now, in fairness, the MINI Countryman SE starts at £46,600, but then of course you've got one of your 3 trim levels to go for, either your classic, exclusive or sport. This is a sport, which adds on quite a few £1,000s. Then you've got your option packs to add on to either a level 1, a level 2 or a level 3, and if you want it to the same spec that the Smart car is, it's a level 3 car you've got to have, which is what we've got here. So yeah, it's quite expensive. The Smart, in contrast to that, is £45,450 as it sits. The only other thing you add on to that is your paint finish. And if you go for one of the standard paint finishes like this white, that's it. Everything else is standard on the car. £10,000 less than that. Hashtag 3, hashtag mic drop. Now, when it comes to competition for these two, it's not quite as clear cut as you might first think, because remember, we're talking about performance brands. John Cooper Works, Brabus. Yes, there are fast crossover, all electric crossovers out there, but as I say, fast doesn't necessarily mean fun. Now, I've always made that point. You know, Volvo, the EX30, which shares its running gear with the Smart hashtag 3, you know, it doesn't look as funky, as sporty as the Smart. It's as quick as the Smart, but is it as fun to drive? Potentially, but it is a smaller car. It's more like the Smart hashtag 1. So it's smaller in the back, it's got a smaller boot, smaller price tag, but it's a much smaller car. So maybe that's not really a rival, especially not for the MINI Countryman. That's more going to be like to the Aceman type of competition. That's going to be see it as. Same with the Tesla Model Y. Now again, I know there's many people out there that go, well, that's quick, you know. Yeah, it is, it's really quick. But it's not necessarily as fun to drive as either of these two cars. You know, it's fast in a straight line, you stamp on the throttle and oblivion happens and all very well and good. When you reach a corner, yeah, so there we go. So yeah, so it's not quite as clear cut as we think. You've got to spend a little bit more money if you want to find some true rivals to these cars. My BMW iX2 M Sport, you know, but that's over £60,000 to the spec of it. You thought the Mini was expensive. That's horrifically expensive when it comes to that car. Mustang Mach-E GT, 70 grand plus. Your Kia EV6 GT, you know, in the 60s. Hyundai Ioniq 5N, one of the best cars I've ever driven in terms of performance cars, but £65,000, £20,000 more than this little hashtag 3, and 10 grand more even than this high spec Mini. So not exactly what you call value for money, is it? Which means that you might look at slightly different styles of cars if you're looking for competition with these. MG4 X-Power. Now in fairness, that is a bit of a performance bargain. But as I said, I think it's quite a quick car, but I don't think it's the best MG4 that you can buy in fairness. It doesn't quite have the kind of handling finesse, I think, of the rear-wheel drive car. So it's a bit like the Tesla, very fast in a straight line, but not quite as much fun as it could, and dare I suggest, should have been. Coupe Reborn, yep, absolutely, the Coupe Reborn, and of course the new ID3 from Volkswagen, the GTX models, they're coming out, and that's going to be their sort of performance, you know, the GTI models of those cars, but they don't have the power of these cars, and therefore the performance is a bit lacking, and you've got to question the value for money part of those as well, because you've got to spend quite a bit of money in that. But as I say, they're not quite as big a car either, they're just standard 5-door C-sector hatchbacks, but they're certainly probably more of a consideration at that price point than obviously the cars, you know, the EV6 GT and the Ioniq 5N, and of course the Mustang Mach-E GT. But in terms of a performance brand, John Cooper Works, Brabus, these two are quite unique, more unique than you think. So here's what we like and what we don't like about the MINI Countryman SE Sport. What we like, its practicality. The driver operating system and interior design. Its performance will no doubt be enough for many. It's fun to drive. And there's a good sustainability message from MINI. We don't like. Well, let's be honest, the styling is very divisive. The price is high, which means that the value for money is starting to look poor next to the Smart. And our final thing is it really a Mini? And here's what we like and what we don't like about the Smart hashtag 3 Brabus. Well, we like its styling. We certainly like its performance. It's good build quality. And it's priced well, offering good value for money. We don't like, well, it lacks the outright practicality of the Mini. The infotainment system looks a little bit low rent in comparison to others and isn't quite as easy to use. There's a real lack of talk of sustainability from the brand. And our final question is, are people really ready for a £45,000 smart car? Make no mistake, both of these are brilliant cars. They've been great to live with, and I've loved every mile that I've put under the wheels of each of them. Now, as a Mini owner, I can understand why this car divides a huge amount of opinion amongst us, well, Mini people. People are saying, oh, it's too big, it's too ugly, it's too expensive. But there's a reason why it exists, because Mini as a brand needed to keep people within its brand. And if all you're offering is small cars, eventually as their life changes, they're going to leave. They're going to leave, that's it, that's just it. They're going to move to a different brand. So I do understand why Mini now offer this car. And it's very, very similar to Smart. I mean, you couldn't get a more different car to where Smart first started than a heavy, you know, four-door coupe SUV that's all electric. But let's be honest, Smart weren't getting any customers building the car that they were building way back when. They needed to change, they needed to attract new people in. So that's why they've gone down this route. But which is the best one? Well, if you need the practicality in the space, there's no doubt in my mind that the Mini offers that. It offers it in spades. It's a good big car and it's really great to drive. And it's a lot of fun to drive. It's a brilliant car. But for £10,000 less, you've got to think to yourself, if you can do without that little last bit of practicality, it's hard not to choose something like the Smart #3 Brabus. It's well built, it's good to look at, it's great to drive. The only downside is it doesn't really talk about sustainability like a brand that's new, that's trying to reinvent itself, that Smart should. But in this twin test, in my mind, it's the Smart that lands the killer blow to the Mini. And remember, with that 10 grand that you're saving, you could always go and buy yourself a little second-hand Mini Cooper S John Cooper Works hatchback to stick in the garage for when the sun shines. Thank you for watching yet another twin test review on AutoEV. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please make sure that you're subscribed to the AutoEV channel, and once you've done that, press the bell button down below, because that's the way you get notified when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you have enjoyed it, then make sure you give it a thumbs up, and of course don't forget, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Have I made the right choice? Would you choose the Smart over the Mini like I have? Or would you plump for the Mini instead? Why would you do that? Why would you choose the Mini? Have you gone for a Mini? Why did you buy it? Did you know about the Smart? Because let's be honest, they're not exactly shouting from the rooftops about this car. Would you have bought it instead if you'd known about it? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now remember, we're across all social media as well, so Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, X. We're there as well, so please give us a follow there, because that does help us. And remember, if you're in the marketplace for an electric car, it might not be a new one, it might be a second-hand one, and you need to know all the relevant information about it before you go and sign on the dotted line, and you're thinking, where am I going to find all of that? Well, I'll tell you where. On the AutoEV YouTube channel. Stick on the AutoEV YouTube channel, because our back catalogue of videos, if you go through that, there's a little search bar at the top. If you search for the car you're looking for in there, you'll probably find that we've done a full road test review on the car. And remember, our road test is the road test review that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. All that remains for me to say is thank you again for watching. Thank you again for supporting the channel. I'll see you again soon.